Heyo, and what is up, gang? Thank you for checking out Sledgehammer TV tonight. The WWE Super Showdown was even more of a letdown than I could have ever imagined. The main event featuring two legendary superstars that ended up being a legendary embarrassment. And the WWE likes to make fools of us all. They like to try to make me look like an idiot and you look like an idiot. But boy, did they make Brock Lesnar look like one colossal ass after tonight's Super Showdown in Jeddah. And we are going to talk about it right here and right now. My name is Nick Nightmare, and you are watching the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show's Super Suckdown review and reaction show. Let's do it. Ugh.
The Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.
You know, maybe when you go to work every day, it's not such a good idea to bash your head into a surface of some sort to the point where you're going to be bleeding from the middle of your skull before you even get to your position that night. What if you or I did something like that? What if I'm at work? Or what if I'm here and I'm getting ready for this show and I go out into my kitchen and I bash my head into my freezer 100 times and I start bleeding all over my face? You think when I come to sit here and give you the reviews, I'm going to be giving you accurate information? Or you think I'm going to knock a couple of screws loose in my head and do my job like an asshole? What if I went to my real job and I showed up and I bashed my head into the counter a couple of times before I decided to go help a few customers? People will be asking me for a half pound of ham. I'll be giving them 6 sweet Italian sausages. People will be asking me for a half pound of hamburger meat. I'll be giving them 2-pound pigs. Whatever I can come up with, because I'm not going to fucking know what's going on, because I just bashed my head into the countertop 100 times and now I'm bleeding. Maybe for you in particular, maybe you don't do the same thing as me. Let me put it into something maybe you can understand. Maybe you work in an office or something. You're going to get ready for a big meeting with the boss by going into the bathroom, bashing your head into the bathroom stall 100 times, bang, 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 getting all full of blood and going in there. You think you're going to pitch your best pitch? You think you're not going to fuck up at your desk if you're doing data entry? You're going to be putting the right numbers in? Absolutely not. You just bashed your own fucking brains out. You're in retail. Maybe you're a accountant person and you're ringing people out. You think you're going to put in the right numbers? You're going to be ringing things twice? You're going to be charging the people the same time over and over again for a fucking bag of nuts? Ding, ding, ding. So you rang up my nuts 3 times. No, I didn't. So you're bleeding from the middle of your skull. Maybe you should go, nah, that's how I get fired up for every shift at my fucking terminal, dickhead. This is what Bill Goldberg does. On a night where you are going out there, in the main event, you're 50-something years old. Maybe you don't psych yourself up the way you did when you were in your 30s. This is a man that could barely wrestle when he was in his prime. Going in there with somebody else who is equal age, needs to be carefully worked with, and epically failing at every level. And I can't help but believe that it begins with that. Bashing your own fucking skull in before going into a match. And all of our jobs, did I outline my job, your job? We don't go and interact with somebody in a way where their very livelihood is in our hands. You don't have somebody else's body in your control. You don't have to be careful not to kill somebody for the most part. But this is how you gear up and get ready to go out there to embarrass yourself. Bill Goldberg versus Triple H was an embarrassment. It was sad, quite honestly. I feel bad for The Undertaker at the end of the thing, but it was very sad because what this match ends up being an example of is a big reason why the WWE needs to stop booking these Legends versus Legends matchup. You know what should have been done with a Bill Goldberg? If you were so gung-ho about having Bill Goldberg on this show, he should have went up against Lars Sullivan. And he should have been beaten within 5 minutes by Lars Sullivan, because the value of Bill Goldberg at this point is to put over the young talent and make new stars, which you could have did with Lars Sullivan. But instead, you made him look like a fucking idiot tonight. The Undertaker could have been booked against a young talent, maybe a Mustafa Ali. Maybe he shows up on SmackDown a couple of times leading into this show, actually build some kind of a story around it. And then you have Ali put as much as he can into trying to defeat The Undertaker, but just coming up short. Very much like Jeff Hardy did back in the early 2000s. Earning even more respect from the fans, earning the respect of The Undertaker and creating a new star. But instead you take a 50-plus-year-old Undertaker and you take a 50-plus-year-old Goldberg and you get a fucking car crash that you want to call a main event of a pay-per-view that's supposed to be WrestleMania caliber. You want to call this WrestleMania caliber? Are you on fucking dope? What the hell is this team smoking? Maybe if WrestleMania was the showcase of dog shit, maybe this is WrestleMania caliber. Maybe if WrestleMania was known as the showcase of the most boring matches you are going to see for the most part of the night, then the Super Showdown is an equivalent of WrestleMania. What the hell happened tonight? Goldberg failed to execute on every single thing. Something as simple as a leg lock. He botched that. He botched the jackhammer. He botched all over the place, and The Undertaker is not immune to the criticism. The Undertaker put Bill Goldberg in a tombstone piledriver where I thought Bill Goldberg was going to be paralyzed, much like Stone Cold was back in the day. The way his head hit the mat and the way his shoulders just jacked up, I was like, God damn, that was sloppy as fuck, and that is dangerous, and I am scared for the life of both of these men, and this is not a feeling that I want to feel when I'm watching professional wrestling. Is it how you want to feel? Do you want to be worried about the two old guys in the ring? No, you want to sit back and know that they got everything well under control and that they're going to do their best to keep each other safe while providing you with a good match. Which is impossible here. Did you see the face on The Undertaker towards the end of this matchup? I cannot help but think The Undertaker decided to call an audible because he was so pissed off and they went home early. Bill Goldberg was beaten by a simple choke slam before all was said and done. The Undertaker was hit by 3 spears, which was the only move that Bill Goldberg was able to execute efficiently. Everything else was awful. Absolutely awful. An embarrassment, a stain on the legacy of The Undertaker. A match that was completely unnecessary. Something you or I did not need to see. Everybody, oh, let's do a rematch. Oh, I want to see it. It's so intriguing. What are you all saying now? Oh, that was a disaster. Oh, that probably shouldn't have happened, huh? Who was saying that before the show? And it doesn't get much better as we're going to talk about the rest of this show. Now, the show starts off, and while I can appreciate them opening the show with Seth Rollins versus Baron Corbin for the Universal title, it definitely went way too long, and I'm glad that they got it over with in the beginning, but this match ended up being an afterthought before all was said and done. They made Baron Corbin look like a fucking idiot. Not that it's hard for him to do that, just based off of the way he dresses coming out for his matchups. But this guy gave a shit more about the referee doing his job than actually doing his own job, which is trying to win the Universal Championship from Seth Rollins. And now he wants to turn around and say, it's the referee's fault, when you were the dumbass that had to keep turning your attention to the referee for not administering a count as fast as you wanted it to be. You're a jackass and you look like an idiot. And now you're an afterthought, because Brock Lesnar shows up to cash in the way he promised everybody. Friday! Here we are on Friday, and Paul Heyman's so fucking excited, he trips getting into the ring, flopping the Money in the Bank briefcase into the middle of the ring while Seth Rollins is recovering, giving just enough of a distraction for the Beast Slayer to strike and silence Brock Lesnar before he could even pull off a Money in the Bank cash-in attempt. And now everything he did on Monday night and the way he walked away from a guaranteed championship coronation, Seth Rollins was half dead. He was wheeled out on a stretcher. But Brock Lesnar decided, nah, I'm going to wait till Friday. And now here comes Friday, and you look like a huge, gigantic ass. You had him. You had him beat, but you had to say Friday for some reason because the WWE had to bait you in, right? They had to make you believe this was going to happen again, only to fail to pull the trigger. And Money in the Bank briefcase is still in the possession of the Beast. And Seth Rollins now gets his little bit of a payback for what happened to him on Monday Night Raw. Are you kidding me? This is how you are booking this angle? You made Brock Lesnar look like a fucking moron. Why did he not just walk out of Monday Night Raw with the belt around his shoulders just so that he can do this tonight? They flew him all the way to Jeddah. They paid him to show up and work 3 minutes to look like a fool. Get curb stomped headfirst into the Money in the Bank. And now we have to go down this road still. Awful. Paul Heyman looks like an idiot. Brock Lesnar looks like an idiot. And we're a bunch of idiots for believing anything more was going to happen than this. And I'm sure Vince McMahon is relishing in the fact that I got all of them in the palm of my hand. I don't know why I always turn Vince McMahon into the fucking king of the Naboo. I don't know why I do that. It just happens to come out. Let's talk about something a little bit more positive. One of only 2 moments on this night that I actually did enjoy, and we're talking about the Intercontinental Championship matchup, The Demon, Finn Balor versus Andrade Cien Almas. A beautiful ballet of brutality, and the only thing really wrong with this match at all is the fact that we do not get enough matches like it often enough on WWE television. This is everything that you would want in a professional wrestling matchup. Very even, very equal offense, a very back and forth tempo. Both of these guys getting to showcase all of their best stuff and pulling it off flawlessly for the most part. Many false finishes, an even amount of offense for both men, like I said, and if not for Finn Balor kicking out of the implant DDT by Andrade Cien Almas, which absolutely took him by surprise as he laid there in the ring going, no, that was my finish, that was my finish. Finn Balor would be able to overcome and execute a picture-perfect coup de grace with pinpoint accuracy to get the win over Andrade, which may be a different story had Zelina Vega been allowed to be at ringside, but that remains to be seen. And they had me on a high there. I thought this was a great matchup. I really had a fun time watching these two, and I hope to see a lot more stuff like this in the future. But I'm pretty sure what we're going to get is a lot more of what came next, which was the Shane and Roman show. The storyline that has been dominating and killing the WWE, and it all comes down to this. More pyrotechnics before this match between Roman Reigns' entrance and the way this match would end than the entirety of any other wrestling show maybe ever in history. It was that pompous, and that grandiose, and that unnecessary. When you have a matchup between Roman Reigns that goes extremely too long, which seems to be the theme of most of the matchups on this night, every one of them given way too much time, and you got me watching a match where Shane McMahon is kicking out of a pin attempt after receiving a Superman punch from the top rope, then I'm immediately done with this fucking matchup. There is nothing that will kill the credibility of professional wrestling more than seeing a 40-something-year-old middle-aged dad like Shane McMahon get in the middle of the ring and, for the most part, dominate for a majority of the match Roman Reigns. The very same Roman Reigns that beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania to the point that made the man leave his hat in the middle of the ring. The same Roman Reigns that has beaten Triple H, that has beaten Brock Lesnar, that has beaten Samoa Joe and Braun Lesnar. Braun Strowman. Ugh, that's how mad it gets me. With the greatest of ease, although Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar are essentially the same kind of a character and person. And he's getting beat by Shane McMahon. He can't get the job done against Shane O'Mac. Stain McSweatpants. Awful. The stuntman of the WWE. Daddy's little boy. The guy that only gets to play in the yard because his father owns the yard. But nobody really wants him to be there. And now he's being put in this shining light. And I don't want to hear, oh, well, he only won the matchup because of Drew McIntyre. He shouldn't even be having this matchup at all. Don't you think the role should be reversed? Not that I want to see Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre again, which is where this is leading eventually. At the very least, I want to see a guy that's an actual wrestler in the ring. I don't want to see Shane McMahon wrestling. This guy's still walking around calling himself the best in the world, making a mockery of us all, making a mockery of the sport. Making a mockery of this show. And it kills it on a weekly basis. And it brought this show to a grinding halt. And just made me want to switch it off at every turn. Especially when Shane McMahon ends up winning this thing. And the excessive fireworks celebration as he rode off into victory on top of his horse, Drew McIntyre's shoulders. Absolutely disgusting. Don't you think maybe Roman versus some young talent, much like I said about The Undertaker and Goldberg, instead of Roman Reigns going down to a fucking Shane McMahon, don't you think it would be more essential in building the future of the company by having Roman Reigns fight somebody new, put somebody over, or at least have him extinguish this Shane McMahon bullshit so that we can move away from it and do something else, because I'm sick of it. And just because he's not fighting The Miz doesn't mean he should still be fighting. It's fucking awful. Just like what they did to Lars Sullivan. We mentioned it before. One of the better ways they could have went about it is have Lars Sullivan go one-on-one with some sort of a legend, some sort of a big name. If you didn't want to sacrifice a guy like Goldberg, you got guys like Mark Henry laying around. You could have pulled the Big Show out and dusted him off just to put the new kid over. You could have made him do this against Braun Strowman, and you could have spared us the fucking Braun Strowman Bobby Lashley debacle that comes later up in this matchup. Oh, what would you do with Lars Sullivan and Braun Strowman? It's easy. You have Lars Sullivan decimate Braun Strowman. You have him attack him from behind, sneak attack. Braun Strowman then stays off of TV for an extended amount of time until we get to around maybe SummerSlam time where he could show up and try to get some sort of vengeance on Lars Sullivan. I have a whole fucking theory of what you could do from there and go on and on and on, but we're not here to talk about how to save Lars Sullivan. We're here to tell you how they failed Lars Sullivan by putting him in a match with the Lucha House Party. And instead of having him go out there and destroy these three guys in 30 seconds or less, they actually had this match go about 10 minutes, made the Lucha House Party get off a whole bunch of offense, have Lars Sullivan taken off his feet on multiple occasions, made him look like a schmuck that he couldn't get rid of these three pesky flies, and took away any fear or any momentum that may have been quietly building up underneath the surface of Lars Sullivan. Now, if he can't easily do away with the Lucha House Party, what do you think he's going to do against a guy like a Braun Strowman? Nothing. This is a guy that coming up from NXT, there were rumors and whispers of him being one of the guys to take down Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is a big fan of Lars Sullivan and his whole package and what he brings to the ring. Apparently the WWE is not. Because if he can't easily do away with the Lucha House Party, who has been just a waste of his time for weeks on main roster TV, now culminating here with no conclusion. Lars Sullivan wins by disqualification? Lars Sullivan looks like a fucking idiot. And it just continues from one match to the next. Randy Orton versus Triple H was incredibly boring. This match did not have the intensity or the ferocity that I expected coming out of the Game or the Viper. You got the Cerebral Assassin versus the Apex Predator, but nobody really went into the next level. Nobody hit top gear. Nobody cranked it to 11. They just stayed pretty much in the 5 range and gave you a very straightforward, very basic old school wrestling match until it picked up a little bit at the end when Triple H tried unsuccessfully to send Randy Orton through the announce table multiple times without the table breaking. The table would not give, making the spot look even worse than it was, only for Randy Orton to come back out of that seemingly not affected by it and delivers an RKO for the win. Now, the problem, for the most part, with this match, like I said, is there was nothing to it. It was way too long. It was a lot of them walking around, laying around, traditional wrestling holds, a lot of rest holds. There was no sledgehammers. There was no real ferocity. There was a little bit of stuff with a chair here and there, but there was nothing to latch onto in this matchup. This was a fucking boring matchup between two guys that I expected a whole lot more. They talk about phoning it in. I don't know if these guys had jet lag or they were just exhausted from the night before. I don't know what the reasoning is that this match was so poor. This was one of the matches that I thought for sure was going to end up surprising everybody and being one of the better matches of the night. But it was just one of the most boring, slow, drag-ass affairs you will ever be witness to. And I can't believe I'm saying that. Because you can't help but get amped up once you hear that opening chord to Triple H's music and the arena turns green and he comes out on the bike and he's got the mask on. You get all swooped up in the moment. And even though you know you don't really want to see this match and that we don't really need a match like this, you get caught up and it just brings you right into it. The same with The Undertaker, right? The Undertaker makes these grand, awesome entrances that you can't even believe that you're watching this guy come down to the ring. And it's not because they're in their twilights of their careers respectively, but it's because they are who they are and they command your respect and they command your attention, and it's something that they do not have in the next generation of talent. So you get caught up into it. And then you get lulled to sleep by a 20-minute snoozer between Orton and Trips? That is not at all what I was expecting. And who the fuck were we supposed to be cheering for anyway? Who is the good guy? Who is the bad guy? They half-assed the build into this. I don't know whether Randy Orton was supposed to be the heel or the face. I don't know if Triple H was a bad guy. Apparently neither did the crowd in Jeddah. They were eating this match up at points, but they were very much going back and forth in support. They didn't know who to really get behind for the most part of the show in every match, but even more so in this match. And I sympathize with them because I didn't know. Last I know, these guys were arguing over whether or not Randy Orton's got balls. So that was the meaning of this matchup. This match took place to see if Randy Orton has balls. And Randy Orton comes out with the win in the end. So Triple H left his balls in Stephanie's purse because he didn't bring them to the dance tonight. But Randy Orton showed the world that he has balls because he beat Triple H now. Harkening back to a fucking rivalry from 15 years ago that has had nothing at all added to it since then. And we were supposed to give a shit. You know what? I sat down and I tried to give a shit. And then they gave me shit. What a terrible match. By two of the greatest of all time. Awful. Just about as awful as Strowman and Lashley. Which was a whole nother level of awful. This was just your generic Monday Night Raw match. On a big show. Strowman was made to look like an idiot because it took him so long to have to beat a Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley's timing was off for a majority of this matchup. These guys are trying to do flips and all kinds of middleweight wrestling type of moves, which come off more like awful than impressive, if you ask me. It's not impressive to watch Braun Strowman do a fucking leapfrog when Finn Balor's doing leapfrogs and Ali's doing leapfrogs. Why is the 7-foot fucking monkey doing a leapfrog? He should be tackling people head on, grabbing people by the throat and pushing them head first into the ground. What are you leaving your feet? Same thing with a fucking Bobby Lashley. What is with all the agility, trying to do all these cat-like maneuvers? Trying to go to the top rope and shit. What are the milk dud traps for? What are your gigantic milk dud shoulders and muscles all for? To fly around like Rey Mysterio? Get in there and punch somebody in the mouth. Awful. Way too much time in this matchup. Once again, extremely too long. Strowman gets the win here, and we are the idiots. We are the idiots for having to sit through this matchup in this scenario. The WWE Championship, Dolph Ziggler, Kofi Kingston, a pretty standard matchup. You know, initially nothing much to it. But Dolph Ziggler is an idiot. Or he is made to look like an idiot because he goes and super kicks Xavier Woods in the middle of this matchup for absolutely no reason. Woods is literally just standing there speaking support to Kofi Kingston. He's not getting in the way. He's not putting his hands on Ziggler, and he just eats a boot to the face, which causes Xavier Woods to stick his nose in to this matchup, kicking Dolph Ziggler in the face, which leads to him getting hit with a Trouble in Paradise and losing this match to Kofi Kingston. And I don't appreciate Kofi Kingston using heel tactics to win this matchup and having his buddy on the outside getting the assist for the win. But Dolph Ziggler's got nobody to blame but himself. Just like Baron Corbin in his championship match, Dolph Ziggler is the reason for all the things that were happening. And then what happens? What happens? We got this matchup, which was about 10 minutes. We've seen these guys talking and bullshitting 100 times more than we've seen them in actual action. And now we have Dolph Ziggler in the back crying again. Boo, boo, hoo, it should have been me. Wah. Did you see that? Xavier kicked me. Wah. I thought Kofi was going to be an honorable champion. Wah. I'm a 17-year-old girl. Wah. Look at me pinch my nipples because I'm Dolph Ziggler. Wah. And this guy gets fucking rewarded with a steel cage match at Stomping Ground. You just fucking lost. You just lost. Oh, well, it was a controversial finish, so we need to... You don't need to shit. All right, you don't need to do nothing. This was a fill-in matchup. I was hoping that we were going to step away from this boo-hoo Dolph Ziggler bullshit and get back to some serious business with Kevin Owens or maybe even Sami Zayn challenging Kofi Kingston going into the SummerSlam season as it is now upon us. But no, Dolph Ziggler's getting a rematch because he fucked up. Ridiculous. And all this means is we're going to have to hear Dolph Ziggler bitching and moaning and crying. Me, should have been me. For the next couple of weeks until fucking Stomping Ground. And hopefully Kofi Kingston stomps him into the fucking ground again and gets this whole feud over with and moves along to something better because I cannot take boo-hoo Ziggler. The 50-man historic battle royal was about as boring as the Orton Triple H match and Strowman and Lashley combined. However... Well, before I give you the however, this match was so bad that even the announce team couldn't cover for it. They were all over the place. They didn't know who was who, whose body was flying where, who was what, and where was what. They didn't know jack shit, and everything was happening right before their eyes just like me, and I couldn't keep track for a fucking second. Awful. And you might think that this should have been the way to kick off the show, especially with the way this battle royal would end. Now we'll get to the however. And you guys might think this is out of character for me, but I actually love the WWE giving the win to Mansoor. Mansoor, the hometown kid who is from right there in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. This is a kid that has been on NXT. He's been impressive. He's been able to hold his own in the ring. He was signed 1 year ago by the WWE, last time they were around for the greatest Royal Rumble. And 1 year later, here he stands in the middle of the ring, performing in front of his hometown, and he ends up winning. And this was a special moment. They gave these people of Saudi Arabia a special moment. And I was able to relate to it. They showed the kids in the crowd, and they showed the elation and just the pure joy in the crowd as they popped when their hometown kid won and eliminated Elias from this battle royal. Something that none of them would have ever expected. And they actually fostered an arena with hope. They gave all of these kids, all of these people hope that, you know what, maybe one day I can live my dream. They just watched Mansoor fucking do it. And the fact that there's no championship opportunity on the line, the fact that this essentially turns out to be a meaningless battle royal, but it does have some merit of significance being the first 50-man battle royal. However they want to throw their little first time ever caveat in there. It has some sort of historical significance, and them giving this win to this kid, I think it's just great. I think it was great. It was a feel-good moment. It probably should have happened at the beginning of the show. I don't think it should have been the lead-in to the awful fucking main event that we were about to have to witness. But I'm all right with it. I'm all right with that kid winning this battle royal. Who else would you... What would have happened if fucking Rusev won? What's Rusev going to get for winning this fucking battle royal? Nothing. Nothing. So they took something that meant nothing and actually made it mean something without giving the kid anything. All they gave him was the win. And they gave the entire city, the country, and everybody watching that lives there and that is from there and whose heritage is rooted in Saudi Arabia. It's a beautiful moment for them. The same reason why I love the fact that Kofi Kingston is the champion. It's a beautiful moment for people who believe that they can't do this thing. You are a certain way. You were born this way. You were born that way. You're not allowed to excel. You're not allowed to succeed. And that's bullshit. When you got guys like Kofi Kingston as the World Heavyweight Champion, you got a guy like Mansoor winning a big 50-man battle royal, 49 other superstars that you know, and the one kid that most of you don't know won. That's a little special, if you ask me. It doesn't mean that the fucking Battle Royal was great, because the Battle Royal was awful. It was boring. It was just like everything else, way too long. It was a massive car wreck. But the conclusion made it somewhat worthwhile, and it just made you feel good. I actually teared up. I teared up. I was looking at the little kids in the crowd, and I'm like, man, I remember being that kid. You know, I remember sitting in the crowd at WrestleMania 10, when Bret Hart beat Yokozuna at the end of the night, and how collectively we all felt, and you turned around and you're hugging people you don't know, and it's just a magical moment because your guy won. Or when you're in the stands, when your local teams, if in my case the New York Yankees, you know, you're in a big sports bar with a bunch of your fellow teammates, and you're all sitting there pulling for that one guy to make the winning play, or to hit that home run, and then it happens and you have that elation. That's what happened tonight for these people. You can't be all fucking negative all the time. I try to find the good things, and while there is not much, there was the Intercontinental Championship matchup, and there was this moment for Mansoor. Other than that, after this moment, what did we get? We got the legendary embarrassment of The Undertaker versus Bill Goldberg, a match that I can't forgive. As a critic and as a wrestling fan for almost 40 years, I cannot forgive that they did this to The Undertaker. It is a disservice to him and everything that he has done. He deserves much better. What if this was The Undertaker's last match? This is the way he's got to go out? I wouldn't be fucking blaming him one bit for being as pissed as he was. You seen that picture. You seen his face. That man was furious. And he has every fucking right to be furious. That match was awful. This show was just not worth 1 minute of your time. Absolutely fucking awful. And for those of you who were smart enough to avoid this show like the plague that it actually turned out to be, here I am, bringing the hammer down and filling you guys in on everything wrong with tonight's fucking Super Showdown. Another show that will go down in history that should have never happened. I told you going into this, it was one of the worst booked shows, match for match, one of the worst booked shows I've ever seen. And it definitely lived up to that by performing 100 times worse than I could have ever expected it to. When I'm sitting here telling you guys that my favorite moment of the night is Mansoor winning a battle royal, how can you defend the bullshit that was WWE Super Suckdown? There was nothing super about it except how super embarrassing this made me feel as a wrestling fan. How super embarrassed I was for The Undertaker. And how Vince McMahon should be fucking embarrassed of himself for putting both of these men in this position instead of doing something like I was saying and using them with talent that could make them look good. The same with Triple H and Randy Orton. If you could have taken those two matches, broken them up into 4 singles matchups with a young star, with maybe Triple H and a Ricochet, or Randy Orton and a Ricochet, Triple H versus Andrade, mix it up. You would have got better shows, better matches. Instead of putting all these old guys in there because they are comfortable with one another. I doubt The Undertaker was comfortable. He definitely didn't look comfortable tonight. What a disservice to both men. I'm no Bill Goldberg fan, but he was disrespected tonight too, just by being placed in this main event, placed in this matchup. You can't sit on your fucking couch for 6 months in the off season since the last time you even appeared, maybe even more. Maybe it's been like a year since Goldberg was around last. Train for 6 months and then expect to go with The Undertaker in the main event and not look like a jackass, which is what ended up happening. We didn't see a fucking jackhammer. We saw a jackass. And we saw a pissed off Undertaker. And we seen him get the win tonight over Bill Goldberg. That, my friends, is your Super Showdown review. I can't even stomach this shit anymore. I am so glad it's over. And I think we only got like 2 weeks till this bullshit Stomping Ground pay-per-view, which we don't need either. Why can't we take a break and start building towards SummerSlam, make things mean something? I don't know. But we have already 3 or 4 matches announced for Stomping Ground. It's going to be a rematch for Constable Dickhead versus Seth Rollins based off of their controversial finish. We're going to have a rematch between Kofi Kingston and Dolph Ziggler based off of their controversial finish. Then we're going to have Becky Lynch versus Lacey Evans for the Raw Women's Championship. And Bayley versus somebody I forgot. There's going to be another Women's Championship match. Is it worth remembering right now? No. I forgot who it is, and I'm sorry for that. But I will tell you guys as we continue our coverage of the WWE shitstorm that is coming our way, known as Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, and everything that they put at us in between. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight for this Super Showdown bullshit nonsense review. I fucking hate this show and I wish it didn't exist. And I bet you guys feel the exact same way. Thank you all for being here. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button right now and become one of the over 1,500 plus. We are so close to 1,600 and I can't wait to eclipse that 2,000, and it all begins with you guys. A super awesome wrestling fan just like you hits that subscribe button right now. Ring that notification bell so that you don't miss anything we got coming at you. We are going to have 2K19 simulations of some Stomping Ground matches as we have been doing. Don't forget to check out everything we already have on the channel, which was our 2K19 Super Showdown matches. We did the 2 main events, the Bill Goldberg versus Undertaker match, and we also have our very own Triple H versus Randy Orton, both of which are kind of eerily similar to the matches we got, only way better. Because the computer is not actually 50 and 40 years old, and they put on some pretty surprisingly good matches. You should check them out, with the action being called by yours truly, of course. We talked about everything wrong with this week's Raw and SmackDown. We got coverage of the Jon Moxley interview. We did a full review of AEW Double or Nothing. We have been all over the professional wrestling world as well as the entertainment world. We're talking Game of Thrones, we're talking the Avengers, and we got Dark Phoenix coverage coming up. We got the new Spider-Man movie Far From Home coming, and you don't want to miss a thing for you. This will be your new home anytime you want to bring the hammer down on anything in pop culture. Sledgehammer TV has got you covered, because this is the place to be when you want your coverage bullshit free, full of truth and justice. Bang! Sledgehammer TV is the place to be. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed anything we talked about here today. Show the world that you enjoyed it by smashing that like button, and then share this video with each and every one of your wrestling buddies all over the wrestling world, especially if they were bored as shit during one of the worst pay-per-views I have ever been forced to endure for you guys. And don't forget, if you are not already subscribed, to do that and become a member of the coolest, newest, hottest, fastest rising new internet community that there is, the Sledgehammer Club, which resides right here on Sledgehammer TV. My name is Nick Nightmare. This is the team Thor the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, his tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all of the world, Mr. Blue, the Snowball microphone. The most important member of the team, as always, is each and every one of you guys. That, my friends, is going to do it, and we are out of here, and we will see you next time right here on your new favorite wrestling show, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, only on Sledgehammer TV, right here on YouTube.com. This show fucking sucked. Lou.